comic, I'm starting fires through poetry. The heart's out, staying loyal, no falling out. And if you step into the court, be ready, we ballin' out, yeah. I just gotta go hard. Go hard, go hard, go hard.
Hello everybody and welcome to Weekly News Live. We are no longer iGaming Next, so I can't call it that anymore. We'll need to adjust that graphic there, I think, on the preview. But the show must go on, of course, and joining me today are Connor and Nico. Welcome, guys. And the first thing I'll say is, it feels very empty on here after you had about 400 German gaming experts on last week in my absence. How did that go?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, Jake, when you have 5 guests with as many opinions and as much knowledge and as much insight as we had last week, moderating a discussion like that is no joke. And I hope that Nico and I were able to do them justice, because there was lots and lots to discuss. But we had a lot of fun, didn't we, Nico?
Yeah, it was awesome. And so just put it this way, as you couldn't make it for 2 times in a row, we just need to come up with a replacement. And it was our honor that we onboarded 5 guys to replace you, but we didn't come close to having you on the show. So it was just Germany, my literally home turf, but it was a decent show, but not as good as when you were around.
That's it.
Oh,
welcome back, Jake, and thanks for dressing up today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks very much indeed. Yeah, good to be back, but always good for you guys to mix up the format a bit. I'm sure our viewers appreciated that greatly. Before we go any further, I should say a big thank you to our sponsors this week, Playson and Bombay Group. And also a big hello to everybody watching. Please remember that you can talk to us via the comments page on LinkedIn and also on YouTube, I believe. So yeah, if you want to contribute to the discussion at any point today, don't be shy. I mean, what a week we're having for iGaming news. It's been absolutely crazy, especially today. I mean, it's been full on. I think I was looking at it earlier. The next editorial team has done 25 stories in the last 3 days alone, and we've got a few more to come out for you this afternoon, I think. So, yeah, we could go on for about 2 hours, but we're not going to. So, as we're a bit pushed for time, Nico, do you want to crack on with 10 and 5 for us?
Yeah. So just let me start with the 10 and 5. I'm gaining some extra seconds. As in Brazil, the finance ministry publishes sports betting operator requirements. It's pretty simple, as Brazil's Ministry of Finance has published a set of comprehensive requirements for sportsbook operators wishing to enter the regulated market once established. And this comes along with operators must restrict access to the platform for those under the age of 18, as well as implement safer gambling tools such as daily time limits, loss limits, self-exclusion, and timeout periods. So all the things we already know from regulated markets. Heading over to regulated markets, Italy, as the Italian finance minister, is about to propose and revamp an online gambling laws. So the Ministry of Finance is expected to publish a preliminary decree of amendments proposing a review of Italy's online gaming legislation, which is the first change since 2011. And it always comes down to money, as the ministry believes that the price of online gambling concessions has been far too low. Guess what? They're about to increase the pricing. and it would cost roughly 7 million euros, which is an increase of 20 times the price it is as of today. Heading over and staying in Europe, there are rumors going around that my uncle Rene Janssen, living in KSA, is taking care of his retirement plan, as the KSA demands a 6.8 million euro fine from Goldwyn for operating without a Dutch license. So the Netherlands Gambling Authority, KSA Kansspelautoriteit, has imposed a 6.8 million fine on Goldwyn Limited. The regulator estimated that the annual revenue generated by Goldwyn in the Netherlands was around roughly 100 million euros, and set its fine amount at the rate of 7% of that figure, which comes out of 6.8 million. As it's reporting seasons, and we will touch down on reports as well, Sportradar Q3 revenue is up. So in this quarter, the company reported a net revenue of 201 million euros compared to a 180 million euros of last year, reflecting a 12% increase. I don't want to disturb you with the numbers, just look them up. So it's Q3 also for Caesars, and they reported a record of $3 billion in revenue and the highest ever EBITDA. So the total quarterly revenue was 3 billion, which represents an uptick of nearly 4% from a year earlier, driven by steady demand in Las Vegas casinos and digital growth. And the consolidated and adjusted EBITDA reached 1.04 billion, which is up from 1.01 billion in Q3 2022 and represents an all-time record. Staying in the US, there's always some rumors going around in California, as the California sports betting ballot initiatives are submitted to the Attorney General. So 2 ballot initiatives that time to give tribes exclusive rights to offer retail and online sports betting in California have been filed with the state's attorney. So take a deeper look and keep your eyes on the price, which is 230031 and 230030, which will probably being brought to the election ballot in the state. Then Florida in-person sports betting is about to launch on 7th of December. As we all know, the Seminole tribe holds the exclusive right to offer gambling in Florida, and they will start with their in-person sports betting at their casinos on December 7th, 2023. MGA begins the search for their new CEO. So whoever wants to send in their CVs, keep them tight and keep them updated. MGA is looking for exactly you. So Mr. Carl Brinkert, the actual CEO, is about to step down by January 2024, and they, as of now, MGA with ASA. I'm still live. Am I still live? Yeah, because I lost the connection. Okay, so
You're back.
Which is which question the ads, and they include an individual who was likely to be strong.
Sorry about that. We are obviously having a few technical difficulties with Nico's connection there. He sounded like a bit of an alien.
Okay. I'm back.
Are you there, Nico?
Okay, I'm back. Okay. So as said, the ASA is investigating tweets representing an advert with Anthony Joshua. And last but not least, as Spain gambling prevalence study raises questions on effective protection. So there has been a study which found out that only 6.6% of all Spanish gamblers play online, which rose some question as the apparent demonization of the online gambling sector seems untrue. And this is it, my 10 and 5.
Well done, Nico. You soldiered on through the technical difficulties there. I was reminded of something because I used to study Dutch at university, and my Dutch teacher Erna told us that she does speak German, but she only speaks it badly out of principle. So it was nice to hear you returning the favour there with your pronunciation of the Dutch regulator. But thanks for trying anyway. Very nice. Nicely done.
You're
Oh yeah,
more
I thought
than
it was
welcome.
very engaging as always, Nico. I think there's a cruel irony at play as well. I think that was the first time you were going to get close to the 5-minute cut off, and then the technical difficulties interfered. So some foul play going on there, I think.
Quite possibly. Right, there we go. There we have it, 10 in 5. Shall we move on now to our main stories of the week? Jake, what have we got coming up today?
Yes, let's jump in. First main story to discuss today is the fact that Lottomatica has seemingly won the race to acquire SKS 365. So this is a big deal, and it values SKS 365 at 639 million euros, and it's set to close in H1 of next year. Now, important to note here, Lottomatica's fought off competition from Flutter, which already owns, obviously, Sisal in Italy, and also competition from Playtech, which already owns Snaitech in Italy. Connor, you wrote this story this morning, so I'm hoping you can give us a bit more colour on SKS 365 as a company before we kind of dive into the impact this might have on market share.
Yeah, absolutely, Jake. Thank you for that introduction. I will just point out there isn't a mistake in our headline. You're quite right that SKS 365 has been given an enterprise value of 639 million euros, but the deal will have a purchase price at closing of 625 million euros. So slight discrepancy there in the figures, but that's the information that we've got from Lottomatica. So SKS 365, let's talk about what they are, what they do, and why this is a kind of valuable deal for Lottomatica. So SKS 365 is headquartered in Malta, but it's a major player in the Italian gambling market. So it operates the Planet Win 365 brand, which is both online and across a retail network of 1,000 betting shops, which is rather a lot. So it has this huge retail presence in Italy. It has a really strong online presence. I believe they've got something like 600,000 registered customers online. And it's not just an operator, it also owns a payments division called Planet Pay 365 and two news portals called Calcio.com and PlanetWin365.news. So that's why Lottomatica is looking to acquire the business, because it has this really strong presence already in Italy. So just to give you a bit more information about how that's going to impact Lottomatica's business. So currently, I believe, according to its own figures, Lottomatica is the largest online gambling operator in Italy. It's got a 21.2% market share of the online market. But if you add to that SKS 365's 7.1% market share, then they end up with a total market share of 28.3%. And that's going to really help them put a bit more distance between themselves and their nearest competitors. So, as you've already mentioned, Jake, though, those competitors are indeed Flutter Entertainment, which has a 20.1% market share in Italy's online gambling sector, and Playtech has 9.8%, and Entain has 9.5%. So there you go. Gives it an even bigger lead in the market. They've also discussed today some pretty substantial cost synergies and revenue synergies. So they're expecting something like 65 million euros of impact in synergies there. Whatever that means. No, that's broken down into a few different things: operational expenses, capital expenses, and other things like that. Expenditures, I should say, not expenses. And what else was I going to say? You quite rightly pointed out, Jake, that marks the end of a bit of a bidding war between Flutter rather and Playtech and Lottomatica, who were all vying to acquire this business. And I think Playtech put a statement out today in response, actually, basically saying, "Well, fine, we don't care. We're going to look at other businesses to acquire." So that was fine. But I listened into an investor call earlier where there was a bit of a Q&A with the Lottomatica management team, and there was some suggestion from some of the analysts on that call that maybe Lottomatica had won the battle because of the structure of the deal and the fact that it was all cash and there's no related earn-out payments or anything like that. So obviously 625 million euros in cash, pretty difficult for anyone to turn down. And I should point out, while we're talking about it, that the transaction will be funded by a combination of available cash and new debt. So Lottomatica already has a 500 million euro debt bridge facility in place, and it's going to slightly increase their leverage to revenue ratio to about 2.8 times, I think, and then they're expecting that to normalize over the next couple of years, and come back to the 2 to 2.5 times range. So that makes me sound like I know what I'm talking about, doesn't it?
Yes, it does indeed. Thank you very much, Connor. And that enterprise value, the 639 million, is the equivalent to 8.7 times 2023 EBITDA levels. And if we look at SKS 365 in a bit more detail, so they're expected to generate 300 million euros of revenue this year.
Yeah.
An EBITDA of around 74 million, with 70% coming from online and 30% from retail. And I think our producer Elizabeth has a neat little slide from their presentation that Lottomatica prepared earlier that puts that quite nicely into perspective there. There we are.
600,000 registered customers, 360,000 annual active online players.
Yeah, me and Connor didn't need to say anything. We could have just flashed that up on screen for you and called it a day, really.
But not everyone watches the video stream. Some people listen on audio only, so we must make it accessible to them too. Thank you, Elizabeth. I think that's perfect.
Yeah, that's right. That's not how podcasts work. Let's remember. Please scan the QR code in the top left if you want to read some more details about this story. And Nico, one line that stood out to me was the CEO of Lottomatica saying that Alexander Martin, the chief executive of SKS 365, is in charge of one of the most respected management teams in the industry under his leadership. Are you familiar with Alexander? Obviously, he's spoken on a couple of panels at our events down the years, but seems to be a pretty canny operator by all accounts.
Yeah, indeed I am. So Alexander is a friend of mine. And what a story. Just remember, it was like the comeback, like the phoenix from the ashes, as in August 2019 there had been a police investigation and their offices in Malta had been stormed. They had been fined by the Italian, just let me look this up, the Italian financial police, with a fine of totaling 124 million euros. So this was the time just before Alexander Martin actually joined. So he joined. He was labeled as CEO by end of 2019. So he found a business which was literally on the ground and not in the good ground. So it was broken totally. And as said, he steered the ship around. And once again, shout out to my man Alexander. And crawling back to the top and selling the business for a decent price during that time for 625 million euros is just unbelievable. And once again, shout out to Alexander, who was formerly working for the Gauselmann Group and then, of course, joined SKS to just, let his magic occur on the SKS Group as well.
Nice.
Yeah, interesting stuff, Nico. Quite interesting background on that. There's a Times of Malta story available from back in January 2019 for anyone wants to read about that. But yeah, what an amazing transformation, and they're getting duly paid out for the work that they've done in between now and then, it would seem. So congratulations to their team on getting that deal over the line. Do remember you can jump in and chat with us at any time. A big hello to Lars from Sweden, who kindly sends us greetings most weeks. And to Elizabeth, of course, our producer, who we would not be able to do this without. Okay, moving on to our second main story of the day. And we're going to look closely at Entain, which reported its Q3 results this morning. And they were, just before this call, they just finished a 2-hour-long investor presentation in person. So they invited all the big analysts to come down from JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley. And it seems that they've identified this need that they need to steer the ship, because investors aren't best pleased with the company as it's operating at the moment. Let's look at the Q3. So they're pretty miserable, unfortunately, as warned about a month ago, I think. Online net gaming revenue was up 9%, but that was mostly driven by acquisitions and actually fell by 6% on a pro forma basis. It was a similar story for retail, which rose by 4% but was down 4% on a pro forma basis. And these declines were blamed on a slower than expected growth in Italy and Australia, and also the impact of customer-friendly sports results, which is, as you'll know, a recurring theme throughout Q3 for kind of a lot of the European operators and their sportsbook suppliers. But unfortunately for Entain, CFO Rob Wood said today that bad run of results has continued into Q4 and has actually got even worse. So football results in October were so bad, they're actually set to cost the company 45 million quid's worth of EBITDA. And I think we've got a little bullet point from their announcement earlier today that kind of sums up this situation quite nicely. Connor, do you want to read that one out for us?
Yes, but I'll have to unmute my microphone first. So since 2019, Entain's online business has only seen negative football margins for a full week on 3 occasions, 2 of which were the last 2 weeks of October 2023. So not a good period for sports-heavy operators, certainly not in the UK, where football, obviously alongside horse racing, is the biggest sport for betting, as I'm sure it is in many countries across the world. If I can just steer us away from Entain for one moment, and we'll come straight back to it, but this has been a common theme across lots of Q3 reports this season. So 888, Betson, and Bet at Home have all spoken about some pretty serious adverse impacts from these sports results. What happened was basically all the favourites won, so the bookies ended up paying out massive amounts. So for AAA, their revenue dropped 9.9% year on year for Q3 as a result of that, partially at least. Betson's sportsbook margin was down from 8.3% to 7.3%, so big drop in their margin. We should point out, of course, that Betson still recorded revenue growth in spite of that. They had a really good quarter. And Bet at Home, following those adverse results, reduced its full-year GGR guidance from between 50 and 60 million euros to between 44 and 48 million euros. So it's having a pretty serious impact right across the market there. It's not just Entain, but yes, as you point out, Jake, they have certainly suffered with it.
That's right. And perhaps the real debate here, Connor and Nico, is one we could have for several hours about the influx of kind of overseas cash flowing into the Premier League and reducing the competitiveness of England once great game. But I don't think that's the forum for this, so we'll leave that for another time, shall we?
Maybe that's a discussion you could have for hours, Jake. I simply
I'll
don't.
just talk to myself.
But I went to my first ever Premier League game not long ago. I went to see Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, and it was 0-0, but still a tremendous time was had by all. But they sold out of pies at half time, so I didn't get a pie, which I was a bit sad about. But I really enjoyed the football. 28 years old and my first ever football match. So there you go. I like the Premier League.
Yeah, that's amazing. But you didn't see any goals and you also didn't have a pie. So the fact that you still really enjoyed the experience, means football's obviously great. Nico, football food in Germany is also fantastic, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah,
you're allowed beers
awesome.
in the ground.
It's awesome.
I mean,
And just getting back on the point with the groundhopper rules. The groundhopper rules. So if you're looking for a pie while watching a football match, this ain't considered due to groundhopper rules as you make the pitch, right? It's always about getting a beer and getting a decent bratwurst. So without a sausage, you didn't make the ground. It's not about American pie at all. So consider yourself being educated, lovely Connor. So next time, just go out there and look for a specific bratwurst, and then I'm pretty sure you will make it to the top in the ground hopping rules. So, but getting back to what the both of you just lined out, I don't like the wording of, okay, we had some, serious and bad results for us as the operator, as it just sounds like, oh, okay, for once the favorites actually won, and now we all have to unfortunately pay out winnings to the customers. It just sounds weird, right? And we should get rid of that kind of wording and stamp it into the CFO's mindset. In the end, this is what all the gaming operators are usually stigmatized for. Like, okay, you don't want to pay out. In the end, it's all within calculating odds, etc. And sometimes, in bad moments for the operators, the luck is just on the side of all the bettors, which is a good thing.
We're slightly losing you again there, Nico. But yeah, you make a brilliant point, because when the bookmakers keep winning, obviously the active customer number goes down as well. So like it works both ways. Customers need something to get behind and bet on, and winning is usually a great retention tool, as I'm sure Connor will attest to. But despite the impact of these sporting results, Entain did reiterate its full-year EBITDA guidance of around 1 billion, but it has slashed its EBITDA margin guidance by 1%, and they said that was due to the lower than expected revenue growth, as we've discussed, but also the acquisition of Tab in New Zealand. I talked about that kind of 2-hour investor presentation. It went through everything from the Q3 results, future strategy, financial guidance long term, and also capital allocation. And I think this is where we bring it back to investors, because this will be the first time that Entain has ever had an independent body monitor capital allocation, which obviously oversees things like returns to shareholders, executive pay, how money's being used for share buybacks compared to acquisitions. And I think Entain is a company that's kind of in a bit of a state of flux at the moment. I think they needed to get all their cards out on the table with a call like they had this morning. in part to reassure investors who have grown pretty frustrated with the business in recent times. And I think, Connor, you have some evidence of that frustration after looking into their stock performance in a bit more detail.
Yes. First of all, to respond to Nico's comment, you're right about the language. And I don't think all those operators that I mentioned used the word adverse to describe those results. A lot of them use the term customer friendly, which is nice. Jake, you said that winning bets is good for retention. I wouldn't know because I've never won. I just lose and lose and lose. And I like underdogs anyway, so favourites winning is not customer friendly as far as I'm concerned. But you're quite right. Yes, let's have a look, if we can, at Entain's share price over the year to date. So since January this year, you'll see that shares are down about 30%. There's been a bit of few peaks and troughs here and a bit of coming and going. But if I can just talk you through this and what I think has been causing this, although what do I know? But just looking through some of the news stories over the past, over this year for Entain. So in February there, you see a really steep drop, which I think might have had something to do with MGM Resorts announcing that it would not be pursuing an acquisition of the business. And then a bit later in the year, so it's kind of relatively stable, although still quite volatile between sort of February and August. And then in August, you've got another big drop. And that's, oh no, excuse me, in May, yeah. So between May and July there's a big peak and a big drop. Of course, in May, Entain started talking about this financial settlement it was going to have to pay because of what went on in its Turkish business all those years ago under Kenny Alexander. And things kind of evened out. The share price went back up again. And then in August, it dropped again. After it reported its H1 results. The results themselves were not bad, but alongside those results, it mentioned that this settlement was probably going to cost it somewhere in the region of £600 million. So that did nothing to reassure investors. And then in September and October, you see yet another big drop towards where we are now. And that came after the earnings warning related to Q3. Thanks for that, Elizabeth. The earnings warning in Q3, which kind of preempted the results that have been published today, that pro forma revenue down, and things not going very well. And there's one more graphic I would just like to show you, which is the share price performance over the last 5 years. The shares today are slightly cheaper than they were 5 years ago. So if you were buying shares in one of the UK's biggest gambling operators in 2018 and hoping to hold on to them for 5 years, I don't think you'd be best pleased with the performance. You might as well have put them in a savings account with 0.1% interest and you would have been better off. This is not investment advice, but yeah, not looking too good. I don't know how happy you'd be, Jake. Thanks, Elizabeth, if you'd bought those shares 5 years ago and today they were worth just a little bit less than they were at the time.
Yeah, I think very disappointed. I think that's why they feel the need to set out this kind of compelling strategy for the future to investors to bring a bit of bullishness back to the business. But yeah, keep an eye on our coverage this afternoon and in the coming days to see if that was successful or not, and make your own minds up, obviously.
That's it. Quite right. Anyone else got anything to say about Entain?
You're on mute, I think, Nico.
We are
really. Oh, there you go. Technical difficulties all over the place. I'm out of my mind. So, and that's why Entain and Yeti, they're diversifying their portfolio. You know, they bought the biggest bookmaker in Poland with the STS, which is the leading brand in Poland as well, having quite a significant amount of retail betting shops there as well. And as said, they are quite active on the M&A side as well. And if I'm not mistaken, you also have an article going out or already published. As soon as the white paper in the UK will be published and released, we will for sure see some further M&A activities as well. So it's quite interesting to keep an eye on Entain and their M&A activities as well.
Yeah, good points. Although I think they're potentially going to reduce their M&A activity in the future as a result of this kind of new capital strategy that they've agreed upon. We know not all shareholders were delighted by the STS acquisition. But yeah, one to monitor. Interesting stuff indeed. Nico, a bit of breaking news for you that you might have missed that we forgot to mention. ESPN Bet has its official launch date, 14th of November. Penn confirmed today. So yes, the US market is about to get a brand new competitor, well, of sorts. Any more hilarious jokes to make about the mint green logo?
All I can say is I think we all remember how inviting, creative, youthful, and invigorating that mint green logo was. I still feel
Exactly.
it right now, and I haven't looked at it.
Exactly. So we covered that news already in your absence, and of course we didn't miss on the breaking news. Be assured, Jake. But of course you couldn't tune in to when we spoke about the mint green, which is lucky us, Connor, also matching the color of our Bugatti. So all good.
I know you did a good job covering it. You did a good job, but the fact that it's the 14th of November, I believe, is new information today. I hope I'm right in saying that. Anyway,
labeled as mid of November, and 14th of November just sounds like mid of November, but all good.
There you go.
Perfect.
Only 12 days to go. Can't wait.
Right. We've done a little over half an hour. A few technical difficulties, but we've made it. I think it's probably to the end today, unless there's any major topics anybody would like to discuss.
All I can say, Jake, is that I would really appreciate if any viewers would go and benefit from the fruits of our labour today. We have not stopped, have we? I've been drinking about 14 cups of coffee. I've got smoke coming out of my ears. I've gone cross-eyed because I've been reading and writing non-stop all morning. We've put out 1,000 stories in the last 3 days, something like that, maybe slightly less. But it's been a super busy week and we could never cover it all here. So go to next.io, click on all and have a look through all of the different stories we've been publishing, because it's been a mega week in the sector. Or, of course, if you'd like to filter your news by topic, then just click on the topic that's most interesting to you.
Yeah, good point, Connor. Well made. And also do subscribe to our newsletters via the website. You can find us on socials and even on Teams and Slack, I think. So if that's something you want to get incorporated in your company, then Ross Stafford, our head of subscriptions, is the man to reach out to.
Quite right.
Nico, any final words before we say goodbye to our viewers today?
No, I'm good. I'm
Do you
I'm
want
just
to
happy
bid them
that
goodbye? You can sign us out today.
I'm just happy that I'm no longer facing the technical issues, but all good. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's winter's coming in Germany. Winter's coming in Germany, so that's why I have the light on there as well. And I'm looking forward, once again, looking forward to meet and greet the both of you live and in person during Sigma, because during Sigma it's 2 weeks. As of today, we will do a live coverage. So the three musketeers that we are will be sitting in the same room, and we will be even more live that we are today. And there will be no technical difficulties from Germany. But you probably realize that Germany is a pretty fucked up place, not just due to revenues shifting towards black market. We could not even get a working internet as well. It is like it is.
But you have the best food in your football ground, so that's something to cling on to, Nico. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Jake, for leading the discussion. Thanks, of course, to Mason and Bombay Group, who keep us coming back every single week. And thank you to everybody who has commented and tuned in. What more is there to say than that?
Goodbye.
Okay, then. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
They ain't coming close to me. Flows on atomic, I'm starting fires through poetry. The heart's out, staying loyal, no falling out. And if you step into the court, be ready, we ballin' out, yeah.